Good evening. Welcome to the August 27th Planning Commission meeting. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Next, we have approval of the July 30th minutes. I didn't see any changes. Did anyone have any comments or changes? Oops. Okay. Okay. Is there a second? Patty seconds. Okay. Thank you so much. The minutes are approved. Next, we have citizens' comments for items not on the agenda. It's such a packed evening. Wow. I just can't believe all these people are here. Yeah, they start a queue, you know. Thank you for coming, the few that have come. Thank you so much for coming this evening. We really appreciate it. You should come up to the front and be more of the family. Like, don't hide back there. And they're all in the back. They're all in one row, too. Okay, well. Well, thank you for coming in this lovely evening. I like it. Okay, so now we have the Carroll County Planner. Okay, well, let's say hi to us.
Good evening, Planning Commissioners. I'm Arco Sen, the new liaison for Mount Airy. It's nice to meet all of you. Nothing major to really report for the county this month. Just one small little announcement. MDOT will be coming into our county for our Consolidated Transportation Program. So each branch for MDOT, such as the Maryland Aviation Administration, Motor Vehicle Administration, State Highway Administration, and so on, will come in to the county and talk about projects they're working on in Carroll County. And we recommend Mount Airy Town Planning staff to come in on. The event will take place, the pre-tour will take place on Thursday, October 18th at 10 a.m. And we recommend the town of Mount Airy planning staff to come in just to see what they would like to talk about, what they have to share. And the presentations will be in our county building in the Reagan Room. And this pre-tour is really open to anybody who's interested in coming. So that's all I really wanted to.
Great, thank you.
Arco,
Mike?
question.
Oh.
Share with us your planning background. How long you've been, with the county, and if you've, served in any other as a liaison with any other municipality.
It's cell phone night.
Well, before I came to the
At least you have interesting music.
Okay, yours is going to be next. We're going around the table.
Jimmy Hoffa call.
Sorry for the interruption.
Sorry.
So I got my city and regional planning degree from Morgan State University. During my time there, I volunteered in the Baltimore City Planning Department, working on the final stages of the Red Line project that would have taken place, but due to the new administration, that project was canceled. After that, I was in the private sector for a little while, working on economic development and both coordinating with the private and public sectors for a couple years. After a while, I kind of got tired of it. I got tired of the competition that usually takes place in private sectors. And I wanted to go into the local government. So I was looking for different planning opportunities throughout the region, and I found that Carroll County had a position available. So I applied for the position about a year ago. Everything went well, and I will be, Yeah, here I am. And in October, it'll be my first year here for the county.
Oh, good. Well, happy anniversary. Thank you. And Mike, you had a question? Why don't you come up to the podium, please? Now, see, if you guys would move closer, you wouldn't have that
Take
far to
that.
walk.
So my question is directed to you, sir.
Okay, Mike, you have to put your name on
Uh,
that, for we know it, but they don't.
O'Brien, 806 Park Avenue, Mount Airy. Are planning commission members and town staff going, that could go to this Department of Transportation meeting, can they ferry questions to these people and lobby, for lack of better words?
Yeah, so each branch will have a presentation of what they're concentrating their projects and funding on. And then after the presentation is over, they'll hand out a pamphlet for everyone to look at and then open up the floor for us to ask them questions.
So will things like highway needs inventory be discussed in particular sections of Carroll County?
I don't exactly know which topics will be discussed yet. We really won't know till the day of the actual.
But we could bring it up as a planning commission. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions for Arco?
Could you give us that date again, when they're coming?
October 18th.
Thursday, the 18th.
Okay, thank you.
Thursday, October
10 o'clock?
And Monica, do you have that on your calendar? Or,
Yes, I will have it. I have an uptate for Frederick County. Tim's not gonna be here. He's
Okay.
gonna come in, he's gonna come in October. But he has his higher ups that are gonna come and present Livable Frederick
oh, cool.
to us in October.
Oh,
That's
great.
what they wanted to come in September, but we're gonna have the shred, so they're gonna come in October, our October meeting and present Livable Frederick.
Oh, great.
Just want you to know.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Anything else for Tim?
No, that's it for him.
Okay. Okay, well, we're just going right along. Rules and procedures for discussion and approval edits from the town attorney and commission members. And Tom, thank you so much for coming tonight.
Sure.
I know you didn't have anything else better to do. I had a question for you. Whose edits, I printed it, I mean, it's in color, but whose were red and whose were blue? Let-
Mine were,
Mine's
initially,
are red.
it went through two cycles through me. One, the original revisions I made in red, I believe.
Oh, okay.
I
And the
think
updates are blue.
Leslie made some in blue.
Okay.
And after that, I might have had it yet a third color, I'm not sure.
Okay. Do you want to walk us through this, Tom? Or how do you guys want to proceed with this? Leslie, you want to jump in? Or we can just go where their changes are.
Let's do that.
Okay, yeah, let's do that. Yeah, let's do
Unless
that.
there's something, yeah, let's
Okay.
do that.
Okay.
Whatever the changes are.
So first page, we just saw was as minor town of Mount Airy code. Page 2, 2.1, just a simple. Yeah, I know, it's hard to
Change,
find.
It used to be 66B, that has now been transferred to a titled article called the Land Use
Landing,
Article.
yeah.
So I was just updating the code reference there. I know there are several places in our code, including relative to the planning commission, where there's the old reference to 66B, and at some point in time, we probably ought to commission a complete update of those cross-sec references, but anyway, that's for
Okay, and then 2.2, including the right to vote, serve an ex. I agree, the right to vote should be in the charter, the code, if it's the original, I agree, the right to vote should be in the charter or code.
That was my comment to what Tom noted, that it's not in
It's not in the code.
or the
Okay.
charter.
Right. It's
So, so what do we think about that? Anything, Tom?
Well, I think the reason it's not in there is historic, and this goes before my time, so I might not have this exactly right, or I have some other folks who've been here longer, but used to be, as I remember, or as I've been told, that the liaisons from council used to be called department heads. And so I presume our charter or our code or both made reference to the what we call now the ex officio or the liaisons as department heads, and I'm sure conferred powers on that person to vote and do things like that. Some point in time, the then town attorney, now Judge Titus, I believe, wrote an opinion that indicated that you really, as a conflict of interest to have somebody from the legislative branch actually chair and be department head of an executive branch commission. So at that point in time, they opted for the current liaison position, and I believe what occurred is they simply stripped out of the code or the charter or both reference to the department heads without necessarily replacing it with the concept of the liaison. Are they voting members? Are they not? Et cetera. And so I suspect that the intent was that they would continue to participate, but would not be a department head in the truest sense. So, it's been the practice since I've been here in 2007 under then Mayor Johnson to the liaisons to all the commissions, not just this one, fully participated, discussed, and voted. But at some point in time, when I was called upon to render an opinion about whether or not I think Chris Everidge could both chair and be on the legislative branch, I started poking around in the code and realized there's not a reference to the ex officio member and his or her ability to vote, or really defining what their powers are. So picking up the same comment that I picked up probably now 7 years ago when the Chris Everidge issue came up.
Well, I was the chair of Parks and Recs for many years ago. I was the chair of Parks and Recs for many years, and the entire time I was there, and that goes 94, 95, somewhere in that time frame, Dave Pyatt was my council liaison, and he always voted. We all voted.
Are we gonna discuss this as we go? This, I think it's great that we have a liaison. However, I'm of the opinion that the liaison should not vote because you are always engaging in ex parte communication
Every day.
with the community, which is what you're supposed to do. I'll have to hand them out. I got a copy of the Frederick City rules and procedures. They're online. They're on their website. They're very concise. They're very easy to read. And one of the first things they do when they have hearings in every meeting is they go through and one of the lines in the agenda is the ex parte communication and recusal. So they ask if you have, and you have to be honest, if you've had any communication. It's not a knock on the liaison and by any stretch of the imagination. I just think it would make a cleaner path if there were to be any obstacles or any problems that we would run into. We're cleaner that way, meaning if someone were to bring up something and then they said, well, Mr. King talked to me about that and he voted on this, then we're up the creek, so to speak. So in this particular commission, I do not think the liaison should vote. That's just my opinion.
One thing that, for example, Doc Full is a town resident, a voter, and a developer. Mm-hmm. And 5 years ago, he was talking to me about Brittany Manor. Okay, so where does it end? Because that is something that we talked about that I knew it had to come before this commission. What do I do?
Well,
And at that time, I was not the liaison to the planning commission.
Well,
I
you
was the-
disclose it.
you
for one
disclose it.
thing.
Yeah.
Yes, you weren't.
5 years ago, Doc Full and I had.
No.
No.
If you, no, before the vote comes, before the discussion of the vote. Because you're also representing all the residents of Mount Airy. So
That's correct.
they should know that you've had discussions with the developer, even if he happens to also be a resident. So that's really what we're talking about, is disclosure and transparency.
So where do you draw the line on that, though? Because that conversation about Brittany Manor could lead to a streets and roads kind of issue. It could lead to a water issue. It could lead to all kinds of stuff. So how do you draw the boundary around that discussion?
I mean, Tom gave us some advice in the letter
Yeah.
from, what was that, a month or so ago?
Yeah.
And recognizing that it's an issue, I think we just have to, and it's really, if it's about the voting, it's the town council that decides, not us.
Right.
So I don't,
Well, just in summary, what my advice was to, first of all, define what your ex parte rule is going to apply to. There are some things it should apply to. Those things that from this body could be appealed to the circuit court. That is to say,
Exactly.
you're sitting in a quasi-judicial function. There are other things that you all do, though, where you advise on legislation. You're, by ordinance, you're empowered to provide a recommendation on a text amendment to a zoning ordinance. Well, that's legislative from the beginning. You're providing only a recommendation. Your recommendation isn't appealable to the circuit court, and it's a piece of legislation
to the
that
council
ultimately the town council decides on. So why should an ex parte provision, particularly as it might apply to a legislator who's going to ultimately vote on this, why should the ex parte rule apply in that kind of function? And so my suggestion is perhaps it shouldn't and it isn't necessary in that function. The other thing too, the two other major problems that I see in pulling together an ex parte rule, and again, I'm not saying you shouldn't have one, but they're just challenges you have to think about, is the timing issue. Again, you may have a future legislator who had a 10-minute conversation with a developer 5 years ago that person's not likely, it might not have been a very impressive conversation at the time. It gets tough to catalog for the person who's had an ex parte and been around for a while to come forward and say, okay, over the last 5 years, I've had these discussions with these developers and, et cetera. Kind of tough to do. So my suggestion is to define when the ex parte rule kicks in. My suggestion simply was, by way of example, a concept plan really is very preliminary and in the truest sense concept, conceptual you might say, before there's an application for a concept plan approval. Once that application is filed, you now have a very formal set of proceedings that flow after that. They're very important. You allocate water, you approve or disapprove or seek modification of concept plans. You have an APFO review. All of those things that are the linchpin of whether a development goes forward or not. Seems to me after that point in time, an ex parte rule seems to make perfect sense. We're all concerned until such time as the planning commission has done its business with that development. Seems to make sense and seems to be, as a practical matter, very workable at that point in time. The other issue that you have to remember is that in administrative proceedings, which is in effect what this is, there are two types of parties. There are parties to the administrative proceeding, and then there are aggrieved parties, parties who have actual standing to appeal your decision and say to a court, you ought to overturn it because I am aggrieved, okay? Well, we could probably define somewhat who the aggrieved parties are. They've got to have property close enough to be affected, et cetera. But even that's tough to define at your stage of consideration. What makes it also difficult is that the courts have said that a party to administrative proceeding is literally anybody who has sent in a letter saying, I'd like to be a party to this and would like to comment. That's a larger subset of people who, although they may not have themselves the right to their standing to be aggrieved and appeal, nevertheless have a right to be here and recognized as a quote-unquote party. So your challenge is that somebody, all of you really, not just the liaison, might receive an email from a person who could be or become a party saying, I don't like this development, don't approve it, please, this is terrible. Is that an ex parte communication? Yeah, it probably is. Sure is. Whether you solicit it or not, whether you wanted it or not, you got it. And it's a communication to you outside the presence of this body and outside the presence of the public in a public meeting. So, you know, be thinking about, you know, where are you gonna limit it so that the rule can be applied and so that a person in your position can know what the rule is to follow it. The problem with vague rules is it's hard to enforce, but it's also too hard to comply with. So those are just some thoughts or suggestions I had in my lengthy letter, for which I apologize.
But Tom, if you, let's say you get an email and somebody makes a statement, right? One, you'd have to make a judgment call as to whether that's, I mean, it would sound like anything you get would be considered an ex parte communication. But if you do get that and you're unsure of it, who, would it be you that decides, would you disclose it? And then now everybody knows what the email said, so now everybody's been exposed to the ex parte discussion. So, I mean,
Right.
how do we manage that?
Well, I think that the answer is again, it becomes easier to manage when you have a clear, definitive point at which the ex parte rule kicks in, number one. And number two, from that point on, emails that you receive as an individual from somebody who may be substantively discussing with you what you should or shouldn't do, how you should or shouldn't vote, you know, perhaps ought to be disclosed.
But
You
maybe
could
to
turn it over
you.
staff, or well, you could probably turn it over to planning staff.
Planning
Planning
staff,
staff could collect a
Right.
booklet. It's not much unlike we do for public hearings on annexations at the town council level. We collect all those typically, we put them in a 3-ring binder, and they're available for everybody to see.
And also, whether or not you respond, I think, is somewhat relevant. But I would still just disclose, just forward it to the chair or to the staff and.
But does
There
that
it is.
contaminate your vote then?
I would say just forwarding to the staff.
If everybody has, or just the staff, yeah.
And people have sent emails to the town and addressed it to each one of us.
But the
But
town
we-
forwards it to all of
But
us.
town
Yeah.
forwards it to us, so
Right.
that's, in my opinion, not ex parte. It's if Judy and I were talking and, you know, John Smith came up and said something about whatever subdivision, at that point, we have to say, you know, I'm sorry, Mr. Smith, we can't discuss this right now. Please come to the meeting and discuss it. And I've had to do that. I mean, a lot of people have asked me questions, and I've had to do that. I just take note of when it is, and, you know, I don't go any farther.
So is it that when you look at that, a citizen's comment, or a citizen's comment, even if it was here, is the problem that somebody's been tainted with a citizen comment and others haven't been exposed to it? Or is it that comment should be exposed to the group so that everybody can hear it and make their decision? So you know what I mean? It's, instead of quarantining the comment, should it not be shared so that everybody has the same information?
Yeah, I mean, if you get a series of emails, and it is a good idea to have maybe, you know, publicized, this is the email to which you should send comments, do not send them to us as
Yes.
individuals first of all. And then they're gathered and made public, you know, publicly available to be reviewed in advance of a meeting. See, the whole ex parte rule, its design is not so much that you can't be communicated to about someone's view. Its danger is that you're getting communicated to by only one side without the other
Another
side
side.
knowing what the other side said, and to be able to rebut
Right.
with evidence
Right.
or argument to you. And so, you know, as a commission member, you're supposed to be taking from both sides, and both sides should have equal access to you in expressing their views. That's the main purpose. And so, if you gather them, make them public in advance. Anybody who's interested can flip through them and say, you know, McCarron sent this email, that's stupid. And here's what I'd like to address with my own email. Here's why he's wrong.
I mean, that almost seems more manageable
Yes.
than the prior.
Yeah, it does.
You can be pumping gas at 7-Eleven, and Larry knows this too, and people will walk up to you and talk to you about something that's on their mind,
Right.
okay?
And they should, because you're
That's part of
the
your job.
council. That's part of your job as being a
That is
council
my
member.
job.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's it, that is my job.
So you are dealing with the constituents on a daily basis.
Right, and now comes my question. It has nothing to do with any of all this stuff. My question is, are we authorized to change something in this commission that we're not changing in all the commissions? Each one of those commissions has a liaison. So we're changing, we're adding another layer, or we're adding something else for me to do here. Should that be all commissions?
I mean, we're following the land use code,
Right,
which
I
is the
understand
state code, so, because we're a creature of the state, so I
Understand
don't know if
completely.
other commissions are required to have guidelines like we're required to have.
I don't think they are they?
So it would depend, and it could be different depending on the commission, I don't know.
Maybe the Board of Appeals, so let's put
Right.
that separately, but, I don't know of another commission
Yeah.
off the top of my head that is as regulated and a creature, if you will, of
But-
state statute.
Is that a valid question, authority? Okay,
Well, I mean, here's just one person's view of it. I would prefer to see in an ordinance by the town council, defined what that an ex officio is a member and what their powers are.
right.
By ordinance. And to me, that's the best way to go.
Right.
Now, in the absence of the ordinance, what do you have left? Well, I don't know, I guess practice. And then the question becomes, can this body, by rulemaking, its rulemaking authority, essentially change what the practice has been? And the answer to that is I don't know. But my strong preference would be to do it by ordinance and to define that for all concerned. Now, this body is the one who takes votes that, bear upon whether something does or doesn't get developed. The other commissions, by and large, and there are probably some exceptions that I'm not thinking of, take votes that that determine whether that commission makes recommendation to the town council, for instance, about what they should or shouldn't do. Again, leaving the Board of Appeals aside.
And I have,
that's
I
my thought.
just want everybody to understand, I've no problem with the ex parte rule. My question is authority. Who has the authority to do this? And if you say we should do it by ordinance, then that would be the town council.
As to defining
Who-
whether
who?
the ex officio serves as a member
And
and
votes.
votes. The ex parte part of that, I think, is perfectly within
Right.
the realm of a planning commission to define by rule.
But Tom, like you said, our body is the only body that makes decisions that can be kicked to the Board of Appeals, the Board of Appeals,
Or the court.
or the court,
Mhm.
yeah, Circuit Court. There is no other commission in the town, and I'm not belittling the commissions by any stretch of the imagination. It just so happens that we're mandated by the state of, there are things that we have to follow through the state of Maryland.
And Parks actually has a lot of leeway. They have a lot of authority and power in, they're the next one that
Right.
has, they have generally the same authority you have in building, that kind of stuff. They have that in Parks. And, I mean, that's, you read about streets and roads and, it says something about a report every year. That's
Right.
about it.
No, that's true.
But Parks does have a lot of authority, and they spend a lot of money. Huh?
They recommend.
Ours by ordinance recommends, but, you're right to say that you can.
They have the authority about who can or cannot use our parks.
True,
So-
rulemaking, yes. Right.
So they have a lot of authority too.
I have one other question, but Mr. O'Brien has a question.
Go ahead first, Roxanne.
As a private citizen, this is where I have an issue. This is where I kind of get cloudy. So I have an opinion as a private citizen
Correct.
on ABC development. I should not, ethically, morally, I should not voice my private opinion in public because I'm a council, because I'm a planning commissioner, correct? Or is that just, that's just ethically if I want to do or not do?
Well, I don't believe that there's an
That's just my own ethics, my own
Right.
feeling. I mean, I don't feel that we should, but that's my opinion.
That's a gray area, and I know past commissions, have gotten, some members have gotten very public with their views on things, and, I don't think that's
Okay.
very gray.
All right.
Well, the newspaper comes in here and they want a good story, right, Nancy? And, how do you not talk to them?
Right.
When they come up and they want clarification. Or,
Yeah, but that's after a
different.
meeting,
That's-
after we've already
That's after the
discussed
discussion
meeting,
we've
not
had.
like-
And you don't speak for the entire commission.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
and it's very clear you don't. But, once again, my question is authority, not the ex parte rule. I understand it completely. I probably agree with most of it, but it interferes with my job.
Oh, we can make it easier.
I mean, we obviously aren't gonna have the language tonight, but one thing could be that you can recuse yourself if something comes up where you have had ex parte communications, and it's something within the purview that we've defined, So it's all about disclosure, transparency, and
Right,
that if it's
but
gonna
what-
impact your vote, you would recuse yourself. So it's,
But what if he go ahead, for transparency, what if he discloses that, hey, listen, I've had these communications? Then,
It's-
as long as it's
well,
No, no, he has to
It's
recuse
difficult for me
himself.
to recuse
Hmm?
myself, okay, because I represent these people.
I understand.
Maybe the only voice they have at this commission. You
I
guys are-
understand, but they also have to take their responsibility. If they have an issue with it, and there is public hearings and public record of when things are gonna happen, it is their responsibility as a citizen to get their opinion to us via the staff, an email to the town,
showing up.
or attending.
showing up at the meetings. They have to take some responsibility too, Bob. You can't, lead them by the hand down the road. I understand that. But once you say you've talked to John Doe about XYZ development, I'm going to ask you to recuse yourself and leave the room.
Remember, I'm not sure how far you want to take it. Remember that the rule, what this requires is disclosure of an ex parte communication. Does not necessarily mean you recuse yourself. Now, remember at the end of the day, on appeal, the fundamental issue is going to be, was this a fair proceeding?
Right.
Oversimplifying, but that's basically what it is. Is there substantial evidence to establish what it is you found, basically? So, I would suppose if all of you walked in and said, I talked to the same person, and he's convinced me, and there's nothing you can say that will change my mind, you're probably getting reversed on that.
Right.
But just because there has been an ex parte communication does not necessarily mean automatically you are recused.
Yeah, I mean, what if it's information that the group needs to know?
Again,
I
the
mean,
important
that's-
part
that's-
is to disclose.
Then the
that.
person would come and present it to the commission.
Well, right, I mean, I agree that people should be coming and presenting, and even the conversations, somebody could have a conversation, if it's not in writing, with like an email date stamp or in this forum, I mean, they could deny that they ever had that conversation too, and somebody could tell you that that you could quote them in a disclosure, and then they could say that they didn't have that conversation.
And
That's a whole nother
It doesn't
problem.
have anything to do with them.
pointed
It
out
has to
also
do with
that
us.
people wanting
Us
to
voters.
cause a
It has to
problem,
Maybe we could change our vote,
force an
the
ex parte
disclosure.
communication with me, or you, or any of us.
It's not unheard of.
What I was
That,
getting
you
at
know,
was
they-
the
they-
disclosure could
Wait,
change.
one at a time. Let Bob finish, and then Scott, jump in, okay?
People will actually, trying to muddy the waters and everything, people will come and say they had a conversation with you
what I
that they
was
never
trying to say.
had. And I have no proof that I didn't have a conversation with them.
Well, that's where that swearing in, you promise to tell the truth and the whole truth. You got to swear the people in when we have these hearings.
Well, I'm gonna tell you I had the
Well,
conversation, and he's
okay.
gonna say he didn't.
Well, then it's our decision to decide who's doing what. I mean, but the public has to have some responsibility for their actions themselves.
And a lot of them feel that voting me in or electing me is that responsibility. They've put me here representing them, and that's what I do. I represent the people of the town at this table.
I think,
Not only in the planning commission, but in the any commission I sit in on, anything I say.
I mean, my concern with this discussion that we've been having for a few months now is almost like you thinking you're supposed to be an advocate for this one or two particular people who have come to you at the expense of everyone else. Not just that you listen to them as a council person, but that you're supposed to listen to them and then come to this table and advocate on their behalf and then vote. And so I have a problem with that.
Well,
Yeah.
how about if I agree with them? Okay?
I'm not sure that's
they're
the-
looking, they're talking to me, they're looking for a friendly face here, and they don't know anybody else.
But you're also our liaison and supposed to communicate back to the council. And you're supposed to be our support.
Let's let Mike jump in. He's standing there forever.
Doesn't Board of Appeals have appeal to circuit court as well?
Yes.
So that's another board or commission. And I think part of all of this stuff is a perception problem. Whether you have an ex parte conversation, if you get caught, no one's ever gonna believe you as a public official again, number one. Number two, it's public, where the cameras can see, even if you can agree in public with your constituent, but it's gotta be public in front of everyone. That keeps you out of hot water. That's, it's the
Good point.
perception that you have to deal with and protect for yourself.
Good point. Well, I like what Tom was saying. We really have to make it very clear when the rule kicks in, and that's. Do you want to keep on going through the rest of it? We haven't, Roxanne handed out to the city of Frederick. I haven't had it. Oh, I just got it.
It's just a guideline. But there was also something else in there. When they talk about time and asking for time, in the page 3 of the Frederick City one, they give time allotments. I think that would be good. They give the applicant's initial presentations 15 minutes, the rebuttals 10, individual testimony 3, group testimony 10. So,
Well, we've done the
we do it,
time.
but it's not. This is
Right.
not written down.
Right. And the only time, and I remember because I've been on my cell phone watching when we have a huge queue of people, and I'm like 2 minutes, and like you're up and all that, and then.
But
that was-
this gets them,
Mhm.
this gets them knowing, okay, I only have, and we might have to knock it down, but at least they can see in writing how much time they have. It's just,
Monica, yes?
Yeah, I just had one really little change, where it says references town planner, it should be community planning administrator.
What page is that?
Anytime.
Wherever it is in the document.
Oh, okay.
There's just one little reference to town planner, it should just be updated to the current title, that's all.
To community planner.
It's a community planning administrator.
Oh, okay.
It should
And
be a
what-
step above the council.
Okay.
And if you go down to the bottom of page 1 of 12, definition of an authorized member, we talk about an alternate down there. Okay, and an alternate not only votes during an absence, but an alternate votes during a recusal too, and I believe that's in our town code.
yeah, it is.
Well, that makes sense.
And if we do a vote tonight
And,
on this,
and
you'll
then,
see it in action.
and then the alternate is part of the conversation and everything, just like everybody else. The only thing he doesn't do, if here are 8 voting members or 7 voting members, he doesn't vote. It's the only thing he
Right.
doesn't do.
Yes.
Mhm. Okay, continuing then, we talked about page 2. How about page 4? Okay, 4.3, questions put to a vote are decided by a majority of members present and voting. No decision may be made in the absence of a quorum.
See, this is where my fear came in of having recusals, was because if every conversation, if any interaction after the time frame in question starts picking off voting members, we may not be able to reach a quorum. And so what I was trying to express earlier was that I personally would like to have the disclosure of the discussion and have it be public so that all of us can make a decision based on, I never think you can have too much information. No, if it's crap, it's crap, but if it's information that's valuable, I'd rather not see Roxanne get plucked off of the voting because she had a conversation. I'd like to know what that conversation was and be exposed to that conversation so that it can go into my thinking and my analysis of this situation. And so when we talk about voting in quorum and recusals, I feel like there's gonna be like a 3-person vote if we don't do this right.
And if I wanted to
I think it's
stop
pretty
things-
rare.
if-
This
if-
would be pretty rare.
Yeah.
If I wanted to stop things and slow it down and make it last till the next meeting, I could recuse myself, being one of the 4 here. Now you have 3.
But see, you're acting like this is just some mechanism to manipulate the process rather than to try to address if there
We're
are actual issues.
And we're trying to make it
Very
clear,
Yeah.
publicly clear.
Exactly.
I mean,
Transparency.
thank you.
And it would be transparent. I mean, if I wanted to shut something down and there's only 4 members here, I could do it by recusing myself.
Yeah, you'd make up that you had an ex parte conversation and then you'd recuse yourself?
But I don't agree with everything that we do. So my allies aren't
But-
here tonight to raise their hand and vote for it. So I want to shut it down to the next meeting instead of having that vote tonight. I recuse myself.
Oh, you're pretty manipulative there, aren't you, Bob?
Well, my job is political.
Thanks for letting us know.
Yeah.
My job is political. It's different from your jobs.
Well, speaking of jobs,
You are really
let me
going down
let
that rabbit
Larry-
hole, aren't
Larry,
you,
wanna
Bob?
jump in?
It is what
And then
it
Patty,
is.
I'm sorry, you wanted to say something next? Okay.
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify, because the discussion went around, but I think you just closed the door on it. Liaison will remain able to vote at the planning commission, true? Is that what your decision was?
Well,
Oh,
it's
we
not-
ha-
we're in the
We're-
process
no.
of doing these
We're
guidelines.
discussing
They're
that.
not
Still
gonna be
tweaking
voted-
it.
They're not gonna be
All
voted
right.
on tonight.
Yeah, and to Bob and Roxanne's point, I mean, it's tough because, several of us have been involved in campaigns, and you go out there and say all kinds of stuff about things that you want to do when you get elected, if you get elected, and once you're sitting as an elected official and you end up the liaison over at the planning commission, I mean, you've said a lot of stuff. So on the recusal side of this, my question is, if you've been out there and throw a hypothetical that somebody's trying to build a bunch of houses out on a farm that we don't want, and you run on a campaign of, I'll never let that happen, I'll never let that happen, and then you end up the liaison on planning, do you have to recuse yourself? Is that,
No.
no? Okay,
I'll give you a perfect example.
yeah,
Years ago, a judge got appointed to the Circuit Court of Baltimore City, and he was assigned to preside over the asbestos docket. Now, this was a judge that in a former life had been a plaintiff's lawyer and had written all sorts of scathing things about the manufacturers of asbestos in his argument that they should be assessed punitive damages. And he wrote that to the highest court in our land, to the Court of Appeals, and published briefs that they were all sorts of bums and jerks and should be, okay? Motion to recuse him from the asbestos docket. And what he said was, I was an advocate then, and I'm a judge now.
nothing
And that's
changed.
exactly what
Yeah.
the rule was.
Okay.
He's a judge now, he's expected to fulfill a different role.
Okay,
And I don't think it's much different than here.
okay, all right. That sounds good. I
Right,
think that's it.
we're the judges, not the advocates.
Your judges in certain, with respect to,
exactly.
when it comes to a particular plan.
Right, objectively
Supposed to be fair,
reviewing and
equitable.
voting based on the facts and,
Well, and
Yeah.
remember what you're reviewing evidence at the end of
Right,
the day, right? What's
right.
presented to you in the context of a hearing.
right.
Mhm.
And that was my point, we're objective, we're not advocates, we're,
Last comment from me is, I mean, Bob's right about the Parks and Rec beautification, any of these other commissions. I mean, you actually end up in several scenarios where you wouldn't have a quorum if the liaison wasn't voting, and you're only voting on recommendations, although Parks does vote on some issues concerning fees at parks and stuff like that. But I would hope that, whatever occurs, it stays specifically within planning and doesn't cross over to Parks and Rec.
So Tom, you're saying that we really don't, you don't see the need for 4.3?
The need for four.
You're-
Let me go back to
Page 4.
Page
You
4.
say not sure the purpose of this?
the,
All voting members must be seated at the dais is what he's not sure about.
yeah, I wasn't sure what the purpose of that was. I didn't, I guess the dais is this table, this oddly shaped table. Yeah, I just didn't understand what the purpose of that was. If, you know, Roxanne's sitting here for the moment, looking over the code book, you know, she not at the dais and not permitted to vote. I just didn't
I
understand.
got a perfect example of this. I had an EDC meeting last Wednesday, right? Oh, sorry. I had an EDC meeting last Wednesday. I arrived home at 6 o'clock to find out the town, in attempting to shut my neighbor's water off, had shut mine off. Okay, so it became very important to me that we get water. And I called the chair and I said I would be late. Walked in the door and I sat down right where Doc O'Brien is, right there, and still participated in the meeting. So I wasn't sitting at the dais and I voted.
And
It
that's
was more,
EDC.
it was more, that Scott was the alternate, Bob was intentionally sitting over there, even though he was the voting member and Scott was not voting. And this happened a few times, and then we're having these discussions, and there was one meeting I was chairing and I couldn't see him, so we're trying to talk to each other, and, you know, it has to go through Roxanne, and so to me, if there's enough space at the table, the people who are voting should be at the table, which doesn't mean you can't walk in late and say, wait, I'm here, I want to vote, but that was why I put that in.
Okay, well, the other side of it, isn't they're getting a table that's gonna be bigger, and so everyone will fit?
Well, eventually this will probably go away because they've
It
talked
is.
about a normal town hall system.
We're gonna reconfigure this room and the table will be gone, so we'll have a
Right.
more traditional, like half horseshoe platform.
And it was somehow, in the next whenever year or so, or 6 months, people can Skype or Zoom, and that's allowed, and they can vote from their, then that's a whole other issue. But
Tell them remote in.
We tried that one.
We
They tried
we
that.
tried that with Dave Blaze one
It
time.
didn't
and
work.
The council
Oh, that's
was,
right.
they were in for an experiment, and so we did
They
it.
did it.
It worked out great until we didn't realize that we were plugged into a plug that had no power. So eventually my laptop fritzed, it went out, and we're playing with the plug, and it's just, so we decided never to do that again. And we actually have rules of procedure that we write down, very, very simple stuff that we decide like that, and it went in the book. And that's the kind of stuff you can, decide tonight, we're gonna do that or we're not gonna do that. It was a great experiment, it just didn't work.
I think technology has come
Come on, way.
a little
A little
further.
Yeah.
different.
Yeah,
Blaze has been gone for a while,
It's like the Apollo program. So.
yeah, it's gonna change. So, okay, we're okay with 4.5. Then next is,
Whatever that was taken out.
yeah, so then next,
Should we go back to 4.3, did we decide to do anything? All voting members must be seated at the dais of the planning commission? Is that necessary?
Where are you seeing?
4.3?
4.3
Top
and
of page
and
4.
purple.
4 of 12.
Oh, yeah, purple.
Oh,
Yeah, I'm sorry, Patty, I forgot, sorry.
Well, I sort of forgot what I was going to ask because we've been going round and round and round. But one of the things that I do think is very important and that we should be sitting at the table is that these meetings are taped.
Correct.
And if anybody wants to hear what we're voting and you're sitting at that table,
I said there's a microphone.
You weren't using it, I remember.
so I think that's another important
Oh.
point.
So the
Is
camera
that
can't see,
we
the
need
camera
to
can't
be
see
heard.
him?
I think the camera can zoom in on him if they need to.
Cameras saw me several times during the meeting, I've watched it over and over.
You just have to make sure that the microphone's on and the cameras can see you.
Right, so, I mean, as long as we're okay with that, but I think that's another important point of
Because for me
sitting at the
sitting
table.
here, okay, as number 8, okay, Patty keeps getting this out. Okay, me sitting here as number 8, Patty keeps getting. She's sharing with me. I do have a microphone back there. I don't have a microphone here.
I do have to say, it's harder to communicate when I can't see a face though. And
Right.
so I can't see behind
Exactly.
this side of the table to be able to see that. So it's just easier for communication as far as a member here to be all around one table.
Well, I understand what you're saying, I completely disagree.
And
Mike,
Bill,
you-
Roxanne, and Scott can't see you when their back is.
Yes.
Right.
Okay, now I did hear.
All right, it seems like we keep going around and around and around to this ex parte communication. And I understand what you're saying, that you have a different role than we do because you're elected, we're appointed.
Right.
Okay, but I just want to clarify, as a person, if I do receive an email from somebody, it could be a town resident, at that point, do I notify the town staff and just say, I just want you to forward it to her and say, I just received this today and I want you to be aware of it? But as long as I'm not directly talking to, say, a developer, that should not be something that I need to recuse myself.
Yeah, but I would say you disclose that you.
Right, you just
You
disclose it.
disclosed
Yeah.
it, and so
you
we're all
just
gonna see it.
disclose it.
Yeah.
Okay. So if you truly feel as though you could, say, hold up a vote because people aren't at the table, because of your position, then maybe we should consider not having the liaison vote at the table, because they are going to vote, anything that's recommended that's going to town council, they'll be voting again.
Well, generally, and you guys know this, generally, I always take to the town council exactly what your recommendation is. There's only been one or two times when I have not agreed with what's leaving here and going in there. And I've told you all the time that, you know, I will take this, but I can't vote that way next Monday night. One was the guns thing. There was, at one point, we were a 4-3 vote. Sorry. At one point, we were a 4-3 vote recommending to the town council that we allow Mr. Gonzalez to sell guns from his house. And I don't remember exactly what it was the wording of the ordinance that, you know, made it seem like, well, I forget where I was going with that, damn it.
I remember your position on that, though,
Yeah.
which I agreed with. And I know that you have done that a couple of times. Made clear that you
yeah,
would not,
it's-
that
I
you would
just-
not,
I just clearly
could not
cannot vote
Right,
like
would-
that.
Right.
So I try to be very open and let you guys know exactly what's going on. And I wouldn't recuse myself to stop something. But as the chair of Parks and Recs, I only voted in 2 occasions. Make a tie or break a tie. And that's a Robert's Rules of Order thing. But those are the only times I voted on parks, is to make a tie or break a tie. So I didn't get a whole lot of votes on parks in the 25 years I was there.
Anything else?
So
Okay.
once again, I asked, are we leaving in all voting members shall be seated at the dais of the planning commission?
Well, it's gonna be a moot, we'll leave it in there, and we're gonna get a table that everyone's gonna fit in, so,
Just leave it in there.
Just
Yeah.
leave it in
That's,
there.
and we'll get a table where you'll have your own seat and a microphone. So, I mean, that's it's gonna be solved as soon as they buy the table. Until then, you can come sit next to me.
7 seats and then stick with
That's the narrow end of the table, though.
Exactly right. That is in my seat,
Yeah.
town council, I love this because I can spread my
Yeah.
stuff all
Yeah.
out, me and Jason are good. Tom and Peter, who have all the paperwork down at that end, they're good.
I didn't think of
And
it.
I'm left-handed, so I.
Oh, that's really hard.
You should be where Roxanne is.
Okay, so we killed that one
All
enough?
right. Yep.
Okay, so back to page 6. Looks like at the bottom of 6.2, there's purple and red. Let's just go back to, oh, this is talking about the minutes.
minutes.
Oh, yeah. You know,
Yeah, Tom's saying we can just leave it how it is,
yeah,
which is fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That
I'm
actually
okay
came
with it.
out in Maryland Municipal League,
Yeah.
in some of these Opens Meetings Act stuff. Once you have the video, and you know, you get video
Mhm.
from 10 years ago from some of our meetings. Once it's videoed, the minutes are not as important as you would think they are.
Mhm.
When you actually agree to those minutes, you're agreeing that the video.
Okay,
You know, that's,
Captures it all.
yeah.
Can't disagree with it.
okay.
So your minutes don't have to be, you know, dead perfect. I think there was, you know, who made the motion, who seconded the motion, who voted for, who voted against. And that's mainly what are required in minutes, right? Action items and that kind of stuff.
That's correct.
Yes, Nancy?
I don't normally ask questions as a member of the press, but my name is Nancy Hernandez, and I'm writing for the Mount Airy Messenger. And I'm just curious, how long do the video recordings stay around?
Oh,
Like, the
archived?
minutes are forever, but how long are those video things?
That is a really
Do you
good
have
question.
any idea
We
about
have a
that?
we have a records retention policy, and I think I was supposed to check that for you, Nancy, but I can check it. And
Okay,
we have a schedule. We do have a schedule that's approved by the state
all right, thank
for
you.
records retention, and I'll check it,
Mhm.
because honestly, I can't recall it still.
Be the
Okay.
records retention policy.
That would be interesting.
Shoot, question.
But I guess there'll also be a time limit on something too, right? I mean, after 20 years, hey, you missed it.
I would seem that there is, and I think that's what Monica was saying, there is a state standard, we just don't know what it is right now.
Yeah, I mean, we have to get a records retention schedule approved by
Right.
the state for us specifically. And we list all the documents, you know, permits, plans.
But I also
Accounting
remember a
records.
few years ago, we went downstairs in that basement and had to keep pretty much everything that, you know, is paper from,
Yeah,
you know, 50 years ago.
right. And most people
Fire hazard.
digitize that, all that information anyway, so.
Okay, well, we'll get it.
He's smiling.
Well, I smile because the answer's a really long time, because we've had two pieces of litigation. We've had to go back and
Right.
produce planning commission. I produced them on cassettes, audios.
Wow.
So if they're on video, they're on cassette somewhere.
Okay, so a long time's the answer.
Over 20 years.
Okay, let's go, jump over to page 8. There's, it looks like 6.5, there's some purple in there. Oh, this is regarding the speaker and the time.
Yeah. And
This
then
is-
Frederick City has.
Right. I haven't had a chance to,
See what their lengths are.
Yeah, I mean, I like that they have time on it.
I also like, although I question, it says the order of a public hearing shall be as follows. We hear things, do we call them public hearings? Is it, I mean,
When we just have people commenting, it's not necessarily a hearing. It's not a hearing unless it's
unless,
formally.
You're not swearing people in.
we're not swearing people in, although we did one time.
Well, I think it says here that you should swear, doesn't it say that you should?
When you're, even when you're presenting like a, yeah,
That's for a hearing.
so that would be more of a Board of Appeals thing, right? Tom?
I'm sorry, I was feeling the question.
Well, I'm just questioning the word, the ordinary order of hearing and time limits for testimony. So when we hear a site plan, final site plan, or what else? If something's gonna, yeah, a subdivision plan, are those considered hearings?
I would say yes. I mean, they're
Okay, well
clear.
then I'd like to put, then I would like to put, I'd like to see the order of the hearing kind of sort of the way that they have it here on page 3 in Frederick County. And if we make these public, then people are gonna know that they're gonna get sworn in. And it just goes, I just think it makes it, once again, more transparency,
Does
it makes
talk
it
about
cleaner.
being sworn in?
Huh? It says, administrative business and then en masse swearing in of all parties. Persons
in here.
testifying.
Yeah, I was gonna say en masse, yeah.
Okay.
You'd have to do it
Yeah,
en
en masse,
masse,
yeah.
yeah.
okay,
Yeah,
okay.
okay.
I was thinking, oh my God,
Yeah.
how long is that gonna take? Okay, and that, yeah,
Yeah.
that works.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay.
If you're gonna
Yeah, if you're gonna,
if you're gonna testify.
yeah, and it
Yeah.
gives
Yeah.
people notice, listen, you know, this is, I mean, it's important stuff we're doing here, so we need to, know that, and then it just goes here, and then the next thing is the announcement of member recusal or disclosure of ex parte communication, so we're right there. If we have all the emails or whatever, then we know that they're not recused. I just think it makes it more transparent, cleaner.
No, no. Okay, so we're good with that one, and we would also like, so we're basically adding like the contents of page
Just the-
3. We're from 3.3
3.3
to 3.4.
Yeah, 3.3 and 3, yeah.
Okay.
Wendy Doc's back.
Oh, I'm sorry, thank you.
Could that be done simply as a statement by the chairperson at the beginning of every planning meeting? Make some sort of statement as to swearing in any testimony, so you didn't have to individually.
That's what
Yeah, that's what we do, that's the
say.
en masse, yeah.
En masse swearing.
Yeah.
Public comment.
Yeah, no, we would not be doing individuals. That would take forever. Okay, so we're good with page 8. Right? Okay. What are other changes? Just little ones on 10, 11, no big decisions. Staff. There's a purple one, let me see, on 10.2, there's purple, which is Tom. We'll contact the plans meeting staff. Communication of minutes.
Yes.
Yeah, it's okay.
Yeah.
Yep, I'm good. Okay.
Very straightforward.
Okay, we made it through the document. Yay. Now, what do you want to do? I mean, we've got what Roxanne handed out, which we can look at.
Those are the only really things, I mean, I just want to, it's just nice and clear and
Yeah,
concise.
no, it lets people know how it's going to run.
Yes, and I thought it was very interesting that it was on their website, in the planning section of their website.
Yeah.
So it seems like since we still have to resolve the ex parte issue, is that we should, anyone who is interested, have a little subcommittee and use Tom's legal advice and go through it and maybe come up with some language.
Yeah, some specific,
Yeah,
you know, 'cause
because
that's what's really.
if not, we're gonna come back every time and
Right.
have the same discussion.
I think Tom probably had a good idea with recommending that we do something as an ordinance.
Yes.
that addresses the vote.
Oh, right,
Yes,
right.
yes,
Yeah,
yes,
that's
that,
what you-
yeah.
But that would be, yeah,
That's kind of what
separate.
we're talking about, right?
This is a, yeah, it's kind of a separate thing,
The
but yeah.
ex officio part, yes,
Yeah.
and then the ex parte, I guess
Yeah.
you all would let it roll.
So I don't know who would bring this to the council. Would that be you, Bob? And, okay. Okay, good. That would be
Fun.
good. I mean, it'd be good to have it once and for all, at least have it in the code regardless of what the decision is.
Mhm.
Yeah, I
mean,
mean,
yeah.
I don't know what we could come up with now, but, something
Yeah.
that at least has a definition of what we're doing.
Right, yeah, yeah.
Well, is it fair to say, what if each of us thinks about that and thinks of framing and positioning that would, address it, and we also look through the City of Frederick policy and procedure to see if there's anything there that we think might be.
Or you want to have, okay,
Or we
or we
do a
have,
subcommittee.
or we do a subcommittee, but everyone chiming in their thoughts.
Yeah, whoever is interested, can look at
Mhm.
it. And also, in Tom's extensive letter, he went through a lot of different counties and
Mhm.
town codes. So, in addition to what's here with
That's
Frederick,
true.
so,
That should be the larger context.
yeah.
Yep.
So maybe
Everybody
like,
has a copy of Tom's letter, right?
Yeah, that
They
was from last time.
should.
Yeah.
yeah,
From last time.
So it's privileged and confidential. It's
Right.
client.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yes, that means
Yep.
we should not be disclosing what's in the letter to anybody else. So, you want to give us a deadline, Madam Chair?
Sure. Let's get a subcommittee together and be able to present by next meet. Oh, we don't have a September meeting.
Oh, because of the
The
charrette?
charrette, right.
Okay.
Well, then we have, so that gives plenty of time. We have a subcommittee and they have to do a presentation in October.
Okay, so I'd say like within 3 weeks, people
Yeah, get,
submit, even just send it to each other or whatever, however you
yeah.
wanna
How
do it.
about, we've got 2 weeks, Labor Day weekend. That's your, we got 3 days to think about it, get comments in, and if, who wants to be on a subcommittee?
Okay. Yeah.
And there's a couple things about comments. Okay, we have to be very, very.
Yeah, have to be careful on that.
Open Meetings
Yep.
Act,
Right.
Okay, so we can't really discuss a whole lot behind the scenes because these people don't have an opportunity.
Right.
Isn't it more like process?
Well,
What's that now?
If we're discussing this via email about the process and our guidelines, do we have to be concerned about the Open Meetings Act for that? Since we're not making any
If you're
substantive
talking about-
decisions.
If you're talking about emails of a subcommittee, there's less than your quorum. Remember, the Open
Right.
Meetings Act does not apply.
Right.
So you can have reply all emails among a smaller group. If you're going to involve the entire group, it's not clear that emails are considered meetings, but it is Compliance Board, haven't issued warnings, but have said, you know, if there's simultaneous exchange in substitution of a meeting, we might start considering those meetings.
What I was thinking is more like the content of our discussion,
Yeah.
since we're not actually making any substantive decisions, we're just sort of discussing process.
Well,
Or-
the
Yeah,
Open Meetings
that's-
Act
Well-
applies to both, to an advisory
Mhm.
function, which in general terms, includes sort of discussion before votes. I'm oversimplifying,
Okay.
but, so you do have to watch.
I was thinking of that closed meeting we had with Jay Gould, anyway, JG, the attorney, yeah, Gello,
Jay Gullo.
yeah, and it seemed like this
What
was
about a
kinda
workshop?
process.
Well, now also on the 20th, on the 11th, I'm sorry,
Yes, we had that meeting.
on the 11th, all the commissions are being invited to a meeting, an
Mhm.
open meeting for that.
It's training.
Yep.
And if you can attend, it's real good, because there's a lot of stuff that we should be on the edge of, and, Pat gets mad at me and everybody else, but I tell them, I tell them we're about to violate, when you hit reply all, and five town councilmen,
Exactly.
and five town councilmen reply, you have violated the Open Meetings Act. You have a quorum that, you know, they're deciding online what we're gonna do.
Yes, September 11th, it's from
Yeah,
7 to 9.
September 11th.
Did you, did you guys get the flyer? I got the email, the flyer.
Telling me about the,
Yeah,
as soon as I get the time, I will email you.
7 to
all.
9.
7 to 9?
Yep.
Okay.
It's already written down on my calendar. Now, let's back to, what about a workshop to talk about this, rather than a subcommittee? Just, because that would be.
I think that would be better, because I
Okay.
think that would, everybody has,
Yeah,
Yeah, I
and then
think
we can
that
all
would-
participate. And then if you
We'll
can,
Skype Tom in so he won't have to be there.
So I would just say that we, you know, people need to really think about it ahead of
Yes.
time and,
yeah,
you know,
yeah.
do your homework, read his stuff,
Yeah.
read all this, whatever.
okay, well,
so
I'll
that-
work with Monica to find time, but let me see, we could, since we're having, well, the shred's gonna be along in September, but maybe September would be a good time to have a
In the middle.
workshop?
In
Yeah.
the middle, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, because the shred's go, you guys are we're coming in and out, we're not the,
Yeah, you're the last week of September with the shred.
yeah, so,
So they, right before that.
okay, I'll work with Monica and we'll send out some dates.
A few dates, yeah.
Send out some alternate dates, because everyone's busy. But yeah, so you need, Judy, I'll forward you that flyer, it was,
Thank
okay. Okay, so we've got a plan for this, and we also, you're gonna talk about the ordinance. Okay, next, we have our fun time signs ordinance, temporary sign ordinance, section 112-11, discussion and approval. So I pulled out my stack of sign stuff that I've been keeping, that I would love to recycle. Because this has been going on longer than I want to even think about. Okay, sorry.
I just wanted to tell you, Pat had taken a look at this a while ago, and he thought the feather banner thing at 18 feet was kind of high. He just threw that out to me, so I'm relating that to you.
Monica, has the mayor weighed in on whether he has a preference for us, given the couple of options that Tom suggested and laid out? One would be, this is definitely an improvement on the old language. Okay. And you could either proceed with these improvements, but it's not totally cleaned up.
No, I get that.
Or you could go ahead and take the time and expense and light it right up so it's 100% content.
I like Tom's suggestion at the end of, what, your letter somewhere, no, your email, to revamp the whole thing and put it,
Yes.
clean it up
Yep.
and just make it
Make it
all
one
content
Yeah.
neutral.
And I think the goal is so that staff can clearly understand what the sign ordinances is, and the sign ordinances don't have to come here in our regular meeting.
Right,
Yeah,
and that it's
totally.
content neutral.
Well, and that'll
consistent.
simplify it.
Right.
Yes.
Yep.
It will simplify it a lot.
Yeah.
It's up to you guys, I mean,
I mean,
I don't
Well,
know how
that's what I
feels
was
about that.
Yeah.
I know we were trying to help one business who's had some issues with our feather banner, and,
So-
so we were trying to kind of resolve that so that it wasn't hanging out
Yeah,
there.
Scott Strong started this.
So that
I-
would be our preliminary recommendation
Don't leave it down and not finish
to
the
council
work.
Is to
is
just,
that we go
re-
ahead
he
we
left.
just revamp the whole
and
thing.
revamp it.
Monica, I think that when we discussed that before,
Yeah.
I don't know, there was some question as to whether we could have this very limited exception when someone has this very, very limited circumstance.
Probably left it at that.
And then, I don't know what happened. Well, of course, we haven't written
The
anything or
other
passed
The
anything.
other small issue that came up was, Peter brought that up, I think, at our council meeting about being able to pick up
the
political
political
signs
signs.
after the thing was over, and they sit and sit and sit, and we like contact the office, and then nobody responds. Like people who are running for Senate, Congress, people, regional people that come and put their signs in Mount Airy, and,
And
you know,
they don't get
we
elected
can't
in
really
the-
remove
the
them,
first thing
but,
they do is
you know, they
close down
sit
their
for weeks and
office.
weeks and weeks after the primary's over or whatever, so we don't have any mechanism in our ordinance right now to be able to remove those. And
Right.
then Dave, our code enforcement officer, also mentioned, you know, for private property signs, you know, mostly those bandit signs that stick in the ground for a long time. We don't have any mechanism, you know, to go on private property and pick those up after a period of weeks or whatever. So it might be something that also to blend in with.
Yeah, those changes are to chapter 92, I think. And of course, the signs ordinance that you've been grappling with for a very long time is the zoning chapter defining what can go where, basically.
Okay,
And
what's the,
that got changed a little bit by that Supreme Court decision that you commented on, I think, too. And then what we had and what you have to say were kind of different.
Right, so, the ordinance, the way it was set up, is set up now, it picks and chooses by types of signs, what the size will be. And in so doing, could arguably makes content-based distinctions, which the Reed case, at least the majority of the Reed justices, remember there are 9, so there are 9 different opinions, but decided, you know, was not proper, or is at least subject to serious challenge. So, by virtue of the current organization, the revamped signs ordinance, which has been percolating since before the Reed case, sort of picked up on the same organization. And so, you know, what I'm suggesting is that to be completely clean, you rid yourself of that organization and you simply say, maybe do it by zoning districts. Say, you know, signs in this district are this size, in this district this size, or up to the size of this. Always, of course, making sure to state that, you know, any sign that becomes a hazard by virtue of its position, with sight lines and roads and things like that, you know, are always subject to being moved.
so what's the consensus here? What do you guys want to do?
Shredder.
Burn it.
Oh, brother.
Yeah, everybody should be grappling with that issue. It was this first came up at a Maryland Municipal Attorneys Association meeting at the MML conference in 2015. So, I assume everybody else is grappling with it as you all, so.
Yeah, and it actually got mentioned at our last MML meeting, last Thursday night. There was a very short discussion about signs, but everybody wanted to walk out of the room since we started talking about it. It's a big subject with not
It's
a whole
nice to
lot
know
of
we're not the
answers.
only ones
Yeah, I guess it is. It's nice.
grappling with this thing.
If,
Just passes First Amendment
If-
muster.
if we decided that we thought it might make more sense to go ahead and fully clean it up and clarify it, could we get, you know, for discussion purposes and so the council would know an estimate of the time involved and the cost involved in doing that?
Sure, I could do something like that, and then also run it by the mayor to make sure he's
Okay.
authorized me to do the work.
That would be good. So we're, go with that? I mean, yeah, I mean, I just listen to nods and heads before I fall over.
Yeah.
Yes, okay,
Yes.
okay. So, Tom?
And as far as mommy cakes and her signs, not every time you do an ordinance, the first thing you deal with is the exception. The exception, it just jumps up.
Have you ever received from the code enforcer, something about a feather banner other than mommy magic cakes?
There are a couple of
And the
There's a
reason I'm
couple of
asking you is because we always cite her as the problem child, but the truth of the matter is, they put them over on Back Acre. There's a real estate group that uses them. It's our commercial district. So I'm gonna tell you as a councilman, I'm okay with feather banners. I think it's a modern type of advertising, if it's going in our commercial district, if it's helping our businesses, if they feel that it's helping them, I'm all for it, okay? And
Yes,
I don't, I do think that we always look at Mommy Magic Cakes because she's the one who's always getting the complaints, and she's the one who gets the letters in the mail where we continuously try to fine her for $100 a pop. So,
And she's one of those places that really has no option.
and her cupcakes are good. So,
Yes,
One
Martha?
feather banner's fine, but not two or three.
I didn't know.
Right.
yeah,
Yeah.
well,
And we're
in the
saying
same
in
business,
we're
or
saying
you
in a
mean
commercial.
all
Same
along the road?
business.
Concur.
Same
And we're
business.
also saying in a commercial area, defining it by district, that, hey, we're okay with this. So,
I have a question, Tom. How do you define, where does real estate signs come in this? Not the sign that sits in front of your yard, the directional signs and the open house signs. I know the open house signs are temporary, and they only should go up on, my opinion, Friday morning and come down sometime Monday. But, they also put directional signs up. Where does that, do they have their own special little niche, or how?
Are you talking about like?
It's under
Real estate signs.
annoying signs.
yeah.
Like
Or
open
this,
house
or the sign,
signs,
sail this way.
or a directional that says, ABC Realty,
there are a
for
lot.
home for sale, and it points, and then it keeps directing them. There's one on every corner.
Yeah.
7 signs and
Or the time on Park when there were a zillion signs down Park.
12, yeah.
But there are
Well.
bigger problems with it because they're actually not following some of the obstruction, the visual obstruction rules and things. So it's not just that they're even there. A lot of times they're so glaringly in your field of vision while you're driving. So there's a whole nother.
Well, that's the purpose.
safety.
Well, right, but right, but there's a whole nother safety aspect tied to
No,
it.
I understand what you're saying. I just think when we finally get all this done, we need, some of us, all of us, we need to have an all-call meeting with all business owners and people that use signs and sit down and go over this with them.
Yes.
Not send it to them and say, here it is, but we say, okay, here we are. This is your first warning. You get 3 strikes and you're out. So we're going to tell you, we're going to sit down and go over everything with them so that they know exactly what is and isn't, what they can do.
No, I think that's fair.
I think it-
Something worth giving to them.
Absolutely, absolutely.
It might be helpful if we start, snapping pictures and creating a collection of, perhaps
Do's and
examples
don'ts.
of where,
Mhm.
Yeah.
it's inappropriate.
Kind of like our design guide was, which
Mhm.
we,
And that's just a simple example of, by itself isolated, but what we're talking about is when it's excessive, when it goes over the line. Yeah.
Mike?
Is there a method such as like a variance or something for these hard to decide properties that don't meet the requirements for signs, that these people are locked in and they're constantly coming into this commission, being fined and troubling the officials, the council people, writing letters and stuff like that, where it could jump to the Board of Appeals as a final arbiter? Is there a method?
There's something that Heather and I actually talked about.
Yes.
And all of the signs that are in compliance, that, come to the planning commission, not the planning commission, but the town planners and everything, that are in compliance, they get approved. Okay, the others that aren't, they're not in compliance, and they're not in compliance because it's downtown Mount Airy and they have this much room for a sign. they're the ones that maybe we should be taking on, or somebody else should be taking on, the ones that are not, just a.
A simple yes or
it's
no.
just part of the staff
Mhm.
report that the sign was approved. And I don't know if that's us, or if that's, the Board of Appeals.
I don't think it's,
Seems like it's harassing you guys an awful lot, a very small number, take up an inordinate amount of your time. This is from the history that I've been here watching these agonizing signs studies. And it takes everyone's time, and no one wants to make a decision. So the owner is frustrated, you're frustrated, there's gotta be an out and a final arbiter.
And I agree, and the thing is, you can't put a sign there that's ever gonna be in compliance with our sign ordinance.
So why not shift it away from planning and get the monkey off of their back to
Who you gave it to?
Well,
Parks and
the
Recs.
I don't know the legal.
So, if we're talking about a sign proposal that is a part of a site plan or, to be approved by this body approves that, and then they get to put that sign up. You're talking about somebody who has not received approval and has put up a sign. It is a zoning compliance issue. The zoning administrator is empowered, or some other designee, but the zoning administrator is empowered to cite them. The person who is cited has a right to challenge that citation to the Board of Appeals.
Okay.
That determination is made at the Board of Appeals level as to whether or not there has been a violation, or, the penalty is appropriate, or what have you.
But-
So that's sort of how that splits.
They're just interpreting the planning commission's zoning regulation regarding the sign, not whether it can't, there's no way that they can fit a sign.
Right, you're talking about whether or not we would put a variance, so we would amend the code, and I think that was something that I had recommended regarding this particular property, that we actually put in the code an option to apply for a variance under these certain,
Certain requirements,
circumstances.
right.
Because we litigated this, it's technically a subdivision plan variation.
Yeah, yeah.
That through hardship or something.
Okay,
Mhm.
right, exactly.
We ought to
Yeah.
have something
Yeah.
like that in
It would
there.
save tons of your time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and then she could get a sign, and she
Right.
wouldn't have to have an ongoing
Maybe-
problem.
And
as
maybe
well.
if you allow
Yeah.
that variance, maybe it can be reevaluated like annually, because if we do make a mistake, then we can rectify it.
No, I think if we let it in as a variance.
it stays, yeah, you
Yeah.
can't.
Yeah.
Once it's there.
Well, I
Yeah.
mean, that's what makes the decision so tough, because of the permanence of it.
Well, it wouldn't, I mean, that there are variances in the code, and then you go through this whole process, and if it's approved, then it's approved. Now, we don't currently have an option for her to apply for a variance, and that's
That's the problem.
a problem for her right now, and anyone else who may be in her,
Yeah.
in her circumstances.
Mm-hmm.
And it takes staff, your time, it just,
Mm-hmm.
So
it
let's,
seems like a simple process.
let's remember to,
Include a variance.
discuss that and move forward with that as part of this whole sign ordinance.
How much more work does this thing need?
Boatload.
A lot.
It's just the section, just this section.
Yeah, it's just that section. There's more than two.
And we've already done
For that
one
issue.
section that allowed us to put the signs on the backs of Chipotle. and
Right.
stuff.
Yeah.
Why can't this section come alone? Why do we have to do the whole ordinance?
Because we're having so much.
Because we have to make sure that it's in compliance now with the,
With new court
we have to
decisions.
make sure it's in compliance with the new, some of it is older and the wording is such that it's not in, what Tom is considering in the best interest because of the Supreme Court sign.
And that's really what got our.
And that's what
That
is
what
stuck all
brought us
this.
to a halting stop
Yeah.
there. It's because, we, like everybody else, we had a sign ordinance, and a lot of it is now no good, simply because of this decision.
It's not as content neutral.
It's exactly.
Yeah, it has to be
As it needs
content
to.
neutral.
Calvary Church could put a sign out there and have it out there forever, and you can't touch it because, we discussed that, you know, it could be a sign that's very offensive to everybody else in town. But you can't touch it, you can't take it down, you can't make them take it down because of the method. But you can design sizes and timeframes and everything that would cause them to have to take it down regularly. They'll put it back up, but, you know, take it down too.
Mary? Just a quick question. Mary Hushauer, Westridge, Mount Airy. Leslie, when did you suggest the variance? How long ago?
It was a while ago. It was
2 years
whenever
ago,
we were
right.
discussing
Right.
this. Yeah.
I have to admit, I'm not a regular visitor to your meeting.
Yeah.
And I know you're not this way. I know you're not anti-business.
No,
But
we're
I'm
not.
sitting back there and I'm listening.
Mhm.
We want businesses in Mount Airy. To get business, you've got to advertise. I'm a realtor as
Right,
well.
right.
So, you know, and the bakery in question, she needs this. Her
Right.
business goes up exponentially
Right.
when she
When she
has
has
the
the sign
banner
out.
as opposed to the sandwich board. So
Yeah.
the variance, I think that's a wonderful
It is a-
idea.
It is a good
It's a
idea.
shame it took 2 years.
And I don't,
And it's not
I
done
don't
yet.
think that she should be being fined, but
No, that's all.
I'm not in charge of
Busy
that.
there all the time because you can, that Regis is up there. And that's, it increases his business tremendously. Be careful, Barney's watching.
I don't know where it is.
We do need to get this, I mean, we need to put a stop. We need to put a time. We need to say, we have to have this done by boom and have it done.
Can I
Um,
just
you
say one
can't-
thing?
Yeah.
Of course.
Over 9 years, I've been on this plan commission for six of the 9 years. And we've been talking about the sign ordinance since I first got on the planning commission.
I know, Patty, but we have got to get this finished.
Yeah,
It's
we've gotta
imperative
get
that we get it
finished.
finished, so we need to make that commitment. It needs to go on unfinished business at every agenda, and we take a piece of it each time, and we get this thing done. Or we have a workshop and get it all done.
Yeah,
It
I've got
has
it
to
here,
be done.
paperwork, October 14, 2016, joint work session, signed ordinance regulations.
So we just need to get it done.
Okay,
So I don't know.
okay, so where are we going? We're back to
The
having
end of
Tom.
November? I mean, is that a realistic timeframe?
Well, we're handing it back to Tom, so.
I think we're gonna,
And I know, Tom, I know you're busy, and I know
But we have
that,
a recommendation then.
well, we have so much going on with the downtown master plan and all of it. I think that if we tried to do something in November, it'd be crazy.
Let me, and just let me just give you a heads up, we have two pretty heavy development proposals that are gonna come before you sooner than later, and one is Prospect Place, which is the cold storage property, and the other one is Green Tree.
Right.
So Green Tree, Catonsville's getting ready to file their site plan for the townhouses, so those two things are super heavy, and
They have a lot of public concern
and
too.
there's much public concern for both of those projects, so
Right.
just to, I'm
Okay.
just putting that out there, so
Then-
you know that it's not forever away,
Christmas.
it's closer than you think.
I think it's gonna be, if Tom's gonna try to if Tom's gonna
It's just
try
a
to
work-
draft
it's a
something, I
workload.
think it's really a matter of, I mean, what your timing is. I mean, I'd like to get it, I mean, I've been on just as long and just, yes.
Mhm.
But I think we need to get a draft from you to even, so I don't know how long that's gonna take you.
I would say 30 to 45 days at most. I mean, if you give me a hard deadline, I'll meet it.
Tomorrow.
Yeah.
I won't meet
Then let's go for November. I mean, that's, I know that's outrageous, but if you're, because that would
We
be,
need to do it.
let's make it happen.
well,
Yeah.
So-
Yeah.
Well, so
Well-
should I maybe target to have it, something to you? But you are having an October meeting, right? So
Yes.
December one you're not,
Yes.
so by the end of October.
That'd be
That'd be
great.
great.
That would be awesome.
That would be
you start to
fantastic.
look at it.
Right,
Yeah.
well then, yeah, by October, and then maybe we can vote
on it
in
in November.
November.
Yeah.
November, and then
That would be.
That would be our Christmas
a
gift
party.
to town.
And
That would be
so,
our Christmas gift to everybody.
Yeah,
Yeah, so,
And you have a note there to maybe add something on the variance,
mhm.
application, ability to apply, or, I forget if it goes in a different.
General variation, division, in chapter 98.
So maybe,
Talks about hardship.
okay, so maybe she should actually look at that.
Yeah, I'll take a look at that.
I'll look at
I
that
think
too,
that
yeah,
you all might wanna consider
yeah.
something specific to signs.
Okay.
Yep.
And I
And I
certainly
think
can do
Mary,
that.
Mary's statement's gotta be taken into concern too, because we are, sometimes people think that we are not friendly for business because something as simple as a sign can hold things up for months.
I know.
I've heard that from more than one place.
Yep.
Yeah.
Right, but we are not enforcing or fining or,
Right?
so we're this part, and yes, this should have been done, and we agree with that, but in terms of the other part, I didn't know that she was being fined. That was the first that I had
Well,
heard.
think we-
I didn't know.
Pat's credit, Monica can verify, twice she's been sent letters to be fined, and both times the mayor rejected it.
Okay.
But she had the fine, so.
Well, that's only fair to let her, that we're not ready, so to waive the fine. Yeah. Okay, so that's the goal. October for you, Tom, and then we do our homework in November, we vote on it and get something done.
And Tom, if you need any help, I'm available.
Or yes, Tom, if you need something, feedback from officers, or something sooner, we'll do a workshop.
Right, and also, what do we have, like 2 weeks to do? Well, we're not sending things on email anyway, are we?
Right,
So-
no, so we have 2 weeks to do the workshop for,
The
Yeah.
rules of procedure.
mhm.
Yeah, to look at this up. All right.
Okay.
And you're gonna send dates, right? Okay.
Yep,
good.
yep, but we'll
All
work
right.
with Monica, we'll get something out. Okay, so the next is Downtown Master Plan Charrette, September 24th to the 27th. It's from 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. and it's Fireman's Reception Hall.
Farming grounds, yeah. So
Cool.
So leading into that, I have to tell you about Barney's mad drone skills. So he's getting his pilot's license. He's getting his drone
Yay.
pilot's license. And so he had these pictures printed out at Costco, which they do a really amazing job, but, he's playing with, different, aerial views of different properties, and so he actually sent some of these examples to our downtown master plan consultants, and they were pretty wowed by it, so he may generate some other pictures for that workshop, but, just to give you some examples, we kind of collectively thought it would be a really good idea to have some of these drone pictures incorporated into our site plan review and our subdivision
Oh,
review.
that'd be
so
great.
that
Absolutely.
it gives you a different
Yeah.
perspective in terms of road access, proximity to adjoining properties, and it just gives you a different way of looking at things. So I think that would be a really useful tool.
Yes.
So Barn should have his pilot's license really soon, right, Barn?
Soon. We're gonna say soon. I gotta pass the test.
Like out of a plane. When you say pilot, a drone.
Yeah, so it's an unmanned.
Yeah, I.
Oh, okay.
He'll be getting
Yeah,
a
you have to
helicopter
get a
license.
license.
Yeah.
Yeah, for certain.
Floating around my house last
Barney,
night,
what kind of photographic equipment? I mean, that resolution is amazing.
It's actually got a 4K camera, the drone that we have, the town has.
Wow.
It's a great resolution.
Terry and I stopped one day along Potomac Road to take foggy pictures. And she had some beautiful foggy pictures. This guy came in with a drone and was taking that thing out about that high above the water, out in the
Yeah.
middle and looking back at us.
Okay.
He got much nicer pictures.
Okay, let's bring this back in, guys. So next, anything else you want to add about the charrette, Monica?
No, I think we're good. We just have to arrange, for food for our consultants, but we'll get that situated.
We're not in charge of that, though, right?
And just to clarify for people who are watching or will see the replay.
Yeah, all 4 of them.
The idea here is to get the general public.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yes, just say,
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's interactive, and also, I think I had mentioned this
No,
at the
not
council
all of
meeting,
them.
but they're gonna send us a more detailed daily agenda, so
Oh,
they are
good.
planning some breakout sessions during the day,
yeah,
each of those days. And so as they get their planning more together, it gets closer to the date. Melissa's gonna work on promotional stuff, promoting the charrette itself. But they're gonna send us a daily agenda, what they're planning on doing, and you all will get that before the general public does, so.
good. Yes. And I've told my husband he's got to participate.
It's a planned,
Mhm.
unplanned event.
Yeah. Yeah, they're definitely gonna have some breakout sessions for special, I guess, special subject matter.
Okay. So next planning commission meeting is October 29th. It's not Halloween, thank goodness. We don't have a zoning administrator report, at least I didn't see one, but it doesn't really matter. We'll get one next month. And Bill, you wanted to add like under 2 minutes, what's
Yep.
going on?
The NPCA annual conference is going to be in Gaithersburg, out of design, because they're celebrating the 30th anniversary of Kentlands.
That's right.
Kentlands was really the first example of mixed-use zoning in the region. And now there are many others, and ultimately, we're doing the downtown master plan so we can gain a sense of how to apply that zoning here locally. One of the things the MPCA board is doing is they're seriously using the feedback from that outreach project, the surveys that were done with all of the PCs across the state last year, asking what topics, what training, what additional things would you like to see MPCA provide to you? And basically, they said, best planning practices and processes. Okay, training, resources, that information, okay? Appropriate to small, medium, and large jurisdictions. And so you're going to see on the agenda of this, and it's like the last Thursday and Friday in October. I want to say it's like the 25th, 26th, okay? You're going to see a tremendous expansion of what we did in Easton last year. So it's really, really going to be good. Plus, we're going to start to build a resource database. We're going to look at workshop opportunities. We're going to look at video modules, webinars. We're working on a strategic plan, because the idea is the more we can do this, we can support the development of local planning commissions, the better the quality, of planning that we're going to see at the local level. So
Okay,
that's what's up there.
thank you. Okay. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Second.
Okay, this is second by Roxanne. Okay, we've adjourned at 8:40. Thank you so much.
Not bad.